Appalachian Road Ghosts, the vanishing hitchhikers of the mountains on isolated mountain roads. Figures appear seeking rides they will never complete, then vanish without trace from moving vehicles. Long after sunset falls across the ancient ridges of Appalachia, travelers navigate winding mountain roads that have witnessed generations of passage and tragedy. In the darkness between settlements, where headlights carve narrow tunnels through forests that predate European settlement, certain stretches of highway have acquired reputations that persist across decades. These are places where the boundary between the living and something else grows dangerously thin. The vanishing hitchhiker represents one of the most widely documented forms of supernatural encounter in American tradition. The basic narrative appears consistent. A driver encounters a figure on a remote road, offers assistance or transportation, and the figure subsequently disappears from the vehicle before reaching the stated destination. Folklorist Jan Harold Brunvand examined this phenomenon extensively throughout his career, cataloging hundreds of accounts from across the United States and identifying common narrative elements that appear in reports separated by geography, time period, and cultural context. Brunvand's interpretive framework approached these accounts as urban legends, stories that circulate through communities, evolving and adapting while maintaining core structural elements. His academic analysis provided valuable insight into how such narratives function within folk tradition and popular culture. Yet this interpretive lens, while academically rigorous, encounters complications when applied to the specific documented accounts emerging from Appalachian mountain communities. The Appalachian Road Ghost tradition differs from the generic vanishing hitchhiker legend in several critical aspects that challenge simple classification as folklore variant. These accounts demonstrate geographic specificity that remains consistent across multiple independent witness reports. The ghost appears at a particular curve on a particular road or near a specific bridge or along an identifiable stretch of mountain highway. Witnesses separated by years or decades describe encounters at the same precise location. Waterick Knob rises along the Blue Ridge Parkway in North Carolina, offering panoramic views across the Great Smoky Mountains. The overlook attracts tourists throughout the daylight hours, but after dark, the parking area typically stands empty. Multiple documented accounts describe encounters along this specific stretch of mountain road with a young woman who appears near the overlook, seeking assistance or requesting transportation to locations further down the mountain. Drivers who have stopped to help report that the woman provides specific destination information, enters the vehicle, and then vanishes during the journey, not at the stated destination, but somewhere along the descent from the overlook. The consistency of location stands out in the documentation. Witnesses do not report encountering this figure on random stretches of mountain road throughout the region. The accounts cluster around Waterick Knob specifically, with descriptions of the figure showing remarkable consistency across reports separated by years. Regional journalists investigating these accounts have documented similar patterns at other specific Appalachian locations. The Old Clinch Mountain Road in Tennessee, a route that predates modern highway construction and winds through territory that saw violent conflict during both the Civil War and earlier frontier periods, has accumulated decades of documented encounters with a hitchhiker figure who appears along a particular section of the route. Witnesses describe offering a ride to what appears to be a young man in period clothing, only to discover their passenger has vanished from the vehicle without the door opening. Local historians examining these accounts have undertaken efforts to cross-reference witness descriptions with historical records. In several documented cases, the physical appearance of the road ghost, clothing, approximate age, distinguishing features, corresponds to individuals whose deaths at or near the specific location are documented in county records, newspaper archives, or cemetery records. A specific case documented in the mountains of Virginia involves a stretch of rural highway near a Civil War battlefield site. Multiple drivers over a period spanning from the 1950s to the present decade, have reported encounters with a figure in period military dress appearing along this specific section of road. The figure appears suddenly in the headlights, causing drivers to brake sharply, and then vanishes before the vehicle comes to a complete stop. Regional journalists investigating these accounts identified a documented incident from the Civil War period, a Confederate soldier who perished near this location during a skirmish in 1863. The soldier's burial site is documented in local records, located within a quarter-mile of the specific stretch of highway where the figure repeatedly appears. The evidentiary character of these accounts differs from the anonymous urban legend form documented by Brunvand. These are not stories that someone heard from a friend of a friend. They are first-person accounts provided by named individuals, documented through interviews, often corroborated by passengers who were present during the encounter, and geographically specific to a degree that permits verification and follow-up investigation. Independent researchers traveling to documented road ghost locations have attempted to gather additional evidence through overnight observation, video documentation, and interviews with local residents. These investigations have produced mixed results. Some researchers report experiencing unusual phenomena, unexplained temperature changes, equipment malfunctions, or visual anomalies captured on video. Others spend nights at documented locations without experiencing anything unusual. The inconsistency of manifestation presents challenges for systematic investigation. Unlike a supposedly haunted building, where researchers can position equipment and monitor specific locations continuously, road ghost encounters appear to occur spontaneously to travelers who are passing through rather than specifically seeking paranormal experience. The figure appears to drivers going about ordinary journeys, not to investigators equipped with cameras and recording devices. This spontaneous quality makes the phenomenon difficult to capture through conventional paranormal investigation methodology, yet it also lends a certain credibility to witness accounts. These are not individuals seeking supernatural experience or hoping to capture dramatic footage. They are ordinary travelers who encounter something extraordinary in the course of an otherwise routine journey. The psychological impact of these encounters is documented as substantial and persistent. Witnesses describe the experience not as frightening in the conventional sense, but as profoundly disorienting. The human mind expects the world to operate according to certain fundamental rules. Solid objects do not vanish. People do not disappear from locked vehicles. When these basic assumptions about reality are violated through direct personal experience, the effect extends far beyond momentary surprise. Drivers who have experienced a road ghost encounter describe months or years of psychological processing following the incident. The memory remains vivid rather than fading like typical recollections. The sense that something impossible occurred, that the fundamental nature of reality is different than assumed, persists as a kind of existential uncertainty that colors subsequent experience. In some documented cases, road ghost encounters have contributed to serious accidents. A driver startled by a figure appearing suddenly in the road may swerve violently, potentially leaving the roadway on dangerous mountain terrain. A driver who turns to address a passenger and discovers the seat empty may experience a moment of shock that compromises vehicle control. The paranormal encounter, regardless of its ultimate explanation, produces real-world consequences that can prove dangerous on narrow mountain roads with sharp curves and steep drop-offs. Local communities in areas with documented road ghost traditions have developed complex relationships with these phenomena. Some residents treat the accounts as local folklore, stories that add character to the region and attract curious visitors. Others speak of the road ghosts with genuine unease, warning travelers to avoid certain stretches of highway after dark. Community oral tradition in these areas often includes specific protocols for responding to road ghost encounters. Some traditions hold that the figure should not be acknowledged or engaged. Others suggest that stopping to help is morally required, regardless of the supernatural nature of the encounter. These varying interpretive frameworks reflect different understandings of what the road ghost represents: a lost soul seeking help, a residual psychic imprint of a traumatic death, a trickster entity that mimics human form, or something else entirely. No documented intervention has succeeded in eliminating a persistent road ghost from its established location. Unlike accounts of hauntings that reportedly ceased following religious blessing, cleansing rituals, or building modifications, Appalachian road ghosts appear consistently across decades at the same specific locations. The figure that appeared on a particular mountain curve in the 1940s continues to appear at that same location in the present day, described in similar terms by witnesses separated by 70 years. This persistence across time, combined with geographic specificity and multi-witness corroboration, distinguishes the Appalachian road ghost tradition from more ephemeral forms of ghost report. These are not accounts that fade from memory or change location over time. They represent ongoing phenomena tied to specific places in the landscape. The relationship between location and manifestation suggests several possible interpretations. Perhaps certain geographic locations retain psychic impressions of traumatic events, playing back like recordings when conditions align. Perhaps consciousness persists after physical death and becomes tied to places of emotional significance or violent ending. Perhaps the explanation lies outside current scientific frameworks entirely, in aspects of reality not yet understood or documented. What remains beyond dispute in the evidentiary record is that people continue to report these encounters, that the reports show remarkable consistency in geographic location and description across time, and that in some cases, the descriptions correspond to documented historical individuals whose deaths occurred at or near the manifestation sites. The Appalachian Road ghost tradition, documented through regional journalism, local history publications, and academic folklore studies, represents one of the most active and persistent forms of ghost encounter reporting in contemporary American culture. Its location-tied character makes it accessible to documentation and investigation in ways that more diffuse ghost traditions are not. A researcher can travel to a specific documented location, interview local residents, examine historical records for that precise geographic area, and potentially experience the phenomenon directly. As long as people drive the winding mountain roads of Appalachia after dark, these encounters will likely continue. The figure will appear in headlights on familiar curves, seeking rides to destinations they will never reach, vanishing from locked vehicles on remote stretches of highway, leaving witnesses with the unshakable knowledge that something impossible has occurred. If you found this case compelling, subscribe to Vanishing Roads for more documented paranormal investigations from around the world. This story was created with AI assistance based on documented case files. All events reference real investigations and reported incidents.